Hello everyone and welcome to this edition of the Game Domain here on CKTV. And in this edition of the show, I'm just getting back into this show now. I haven't done one of these Game Domains in a while, but I think it's about time we started getting back into it. Okay, well, we're going to cover 3 games on this particular episode, and we are concentrating on screen to video game. We're concentrating on video games that derived from screen epics as such. 3 very, very popular franchises in the world of cinema, and not only, and these 3 are actually from the world of cinema. They're 3 that really were captured in game, and I thought they'd done very well to capture these. And they made a good job of these 3 in particular, in my opinion. They had other iterations over the years. In the 80s, for one of them in particular had a game made in the 80s for the arcade style machines and that. But this on the 3rd generation consoles, for the 2nd generation consoles now of the beyond. The CGI and all, no, it's amazing. But the first one we're going to concentrate on is Back to the Future. Back to the Future was an amazing franchise back in 1985 when the first one was made, and then the second one was 1989, the third one 1990. An amazing franchise indeed, and Michael J. Fox and of course Christopher Lloyd starred in the movie, and it ended up, of course, Bob Gale was involved in the writing of it, and it was directed by the legendary filmmaker of the 80s, Robert Zemeckis, and it was produced by none other than Steven Spielberg. So, an amazing franchise, great trilogy Back to the Future was, and Telltale Games just a few years ago there had the idea to bring about a game, Back to the Future game, CGI game, 3D game, and bring it to us via PlayStation 3, PC, Android, all the different apps. The one that I have, an Xbox 360, it never came out on the Xbox 360, but it did come out on PC. Back to the Future, the game, definitely a game worth having a look at. Unbelievable. The way they do it is they have 5 different episodes. They leave off from the third movie, and it's like Back to the Future 4. I understand the makers of this were going to make a Back to the Future Part 4, but they decided to go with the game instead. And to look at it, it is kind of cartoony looking and stuff, but it really does follow the storyline, and it really does follow on from the 3rd film, and it turns out to be very good. It's episode 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, so it's like a mini series of episodes, but they play out all together as mini films, so it's like another installment in the Back to the Future franchise of films. So let's have a look at the trailer for Back to the Future, the video game.
I'm telling you, this sale is a joke. Doc's only been gone for a few months, and I happen to know...
Well, you know him better than I do, son. But the bank is within its rights to sell off his stuff.
Doc, where are you?
As you are well aware, time travel is an inherently risky activity. There's always a possibility that I could land in trouble sometime. You come to my rescue in the past, or was it the future? Anyway, when you get there, I'm sure you'll figure out what to do. Good luck.
Doesn't that look so cool, folks? Really, really cool indeed. And I think you'll all agree, definitely, that Back to the Future, the video game, is definitely worth a look. And it's definitely a very good concept to see that this would be made. And there's so many things out there that should be made into video games, because, you know, why not? If you make it into a video game, it lasts even longer than the movies, because in the movies you can't change much after they're made, you can't change anything, whereas in video games you can play them to your heart's content and you can keep remaking them in your own way, kind of thing. So it's a good way to invest your interests in these particular franchise and these legacies, and Back to the Future certainly was an amazing legacy. So Back to the Future trilogy was excellent, but to have that game in and even call it the fourth, because it is very worthy of being called the fourth film, amazing. Can we just have a look now at the graphics and at the we'll have a look at the review. We'll do a little review of it while we look at Back to the Future, the video game. Let's have a look at this.
After something like 20 years of silence, Marty McFly and Doc Brown have returned to their adoring fans in Back to the Future, the game. A 5-episode adventure from developer Telltale Games. Using point-and-click mechanics, it's up to us to guide Marty around Hill Valley in various years and set the time stream right. The games rely on dialogue and humor to carry them through some easy puzzles, but the end result is shaky like a hoverboard on water.
Please note that Einstein's clock is in precise synchronization with my control watch. Got it?
Right, check, Doc.
Good. Have a good trip, Einstein. Watch ahead.
Back to the Future the game both nails and whiffs presentation. The voice work here is outstanding. Christopher Lloyd is back to voice Doc. There's a sound alike that practically is Michael J. Fox.
Jesus Christ, Doc, you disintegrated Einstein!
And even the Telltale introduced characters are lively and memorable. Mix that with colorful character designs and a Hill Valley that rarely feels the same, and I connected with these people. That kept me wanting to know how the story would turn out. Trouble is, this is a Telltale game, and that means there are plenty of presentation issues. Lip syncing rarely matched up, the animations were jerky, and the frame rate got choppy. Still, my biggest gripe is that Back to the Future the game couldn't decide if it's the fourth movie or a new cartoon. The first episode starts with Marty being heartbroken over his friend abandoning him. It was a totally touching moment. However, episode 3 starts to break away from reality and the series never recovers. There's this human reprogramming movement in Hill Valley, a bunch of goofy fetch quests on the lawn of the high school, and an ending that has the characters react in a completely unbelievable and unsatisfying way. I loved where the story of Back to the Future the game started, but I wasn't sold on where it ended up.
Marty, get in! This timeline's been compromised!
No kidding! I guess there's time for a quick game.
Back to the Future the game is a point-and-click adventure. You move Marty around the various environments, talk to people, and solve puzzles with the items you've collected. How do you outwit gangsters in the 30s? How do you win back Jennifer's heart? How do you beat up Biff for the millionth time? These are the challenges you're faced with, and they're enjoyable. I can't think of a puzzle off the top of my head that annoyed me or made me want to stop playing. The only issue is that these missions are rather simple. I'm no adventure expert, but I only got stumped once or twice in the whole game, and I was able to get to those solutions with time. Even if I was screwed, the game has a liberal hint system that anyone can use. I know people look to adventure games for challenges, but Back to the Future the game doesn't have many.
No, but I think we've got bigger problems right now.
Great Scott!
I like Back to the Future the game, but I wanted to love it. The first couple of episodes made me think I was getting this serious installment of the series, but by the time the final credits rolled, I knew that I had an off-the-wall adventure featuring Doc and Marty. That's not terrible, as the game is funny, clever, and enjoyable, but it definitely lacks the punch I was looking for. Want more on Doc Brown's inventions? Check out each episode review of Back to the Future on IGN.com. Great Scott!
Okay, well, leaving Back to the Future, the video game, and now moving on to another very good franchise that have been also taken over by Telltale Games, and Telltale Games decided they wanted to make this into a video game. There has been many video games for the old PlayStation and for the Mega Drive that have tried to do this franchise justice, but it never really worked. Universal tried to do. They were the makers of this particular. It was done with Universal Studios back in 1993. Was the first film, and then there was 2 more films in 1997 and in 1987 and in 2003. I think it was 2001, and I'm talking about the Jurassic Park trilogy. And Jurassic Park, of course, directed by Steven Spielberg. Starring, the first one starred Sam Neill, also starred a few mediocre big names, but they weren't massive stars. But the real star of the film, of course, was the T-Rex, Tyrannosaurus Rex. And then the whole Jurassic Park franchise, that one in particular, the first one, really captured people's imaginations. And of course, the legendary David Attenborough was in the film, and it really did turn out to be a big success in the box office. I think it was the #1 grossing film of 1993. The sequel, Jurassic Park The Lost World, Jurassic Park 2, really was also a pretty big success, but I don't think it reached the success of the first one. But Jeff Goldblum, of course, starred in the second one, along with Tia Leone and a few others. But definitely worth a look at the trilogy itself. But Telltale Games came along and they decided they wanted to make Jurassic Park into a video game, so they gave us Jurassic Park the video game. Let's have a look at the trailer for Jurassic Park the video game.
Where the hell is Nedry? We've got to get these embryos off the island. The boat's leaving any minute now. It's time for Plan B. This isn't supposed to happen.
What the hell kind of zoo is this?
10 years of research. Millions invested. It's the next wonder of the world.
Wow, wasn't that amazing? What a great spectacle indeed to have that franchise put into video game. As I said with the Back to the Future one, it's the same format. It's done in 5 episodes, and it's like an interactive DVD, really, more than a game. But it's easier than a game that you would play. Like it's easier than the likes of doing all the different missions in a game and maybe getting killed. I think these games, Jurassic Park and Back to the Future, are more like you solve puzzles and you do these different things on the way to learning the story, which is pretty cool as well. It's a different concept. You know, it's nice to be a bit of a difference. But Back to the Future, or Jurassic Park, the video game, looking very good there. The animation's done very well. The CGI with the dinosaurs and the different characters very much captures the first film, and the Jurassic Park 3, of course, wasn't as successful as the first 2, but it really capped the look of the game. Really, you're in that universe when you play the game. It really is, you know, you really feel that. But you gotta say that it is a brilliant franchise, and it's definitely good to see it brought on to the video game medium of media. But right now we're going to have a look at some of the gameplay and do a little review of this particular game.
Want to feel old as hell? It's been 18 years since Jurassic Park debuted in theaters. That's right, 18 years since Dino DNA was uttered. But Telltale Games is giving you the chance to go back to the island in a 4-episode adventure game. Trouble is, the Jurassic Park game fails to deliver anything as compelling as the movie that inspired it, and ends up being a title better left extinct.
Stanley Footing. There's too many of them.
What do you suggest? Jurassic Park happens before and after the events of the original movie from the perspective of several characters. See, the people that paid Newman to steal that can of Barbasol packed with dino embryos don't give up when the fat man doesn't show up. So they send in a mercenary who runs into a park employee and his daughter, who eventually have a rescue team sent in after them that also includes a former hippie-turned-doctor. You'll play as all these characters, but none of them stand out because none of them are fleshed out. They're all just caricatures. The daughter who was sent away because she was stealing. The wisecracking soldier. The badass who would fight a raptor with just a knife. They're all just caught up in this meandering story where just about every episode leads to the folks about to get off the island only to have disaster strike. I usually play Telltale games and am so wrapped up in the story, so dazzled by the dialogue that I investigate every option. In Jurassic Park, I was bored and just wanted to get going. Those issues only highlight the typical Telltale issues. The graphics are flat, the animations are stiff, sound cuts out during dialogue, and the frame rate has a tendency to drop. None of these problems are crippling, but they do add up. Telltale rolls out a new engine for Jurassic Park that's not the normal adventure setup. Who we're playing as changes from scene to scene and boils down to pushing the camera around to find interactable objects, or participating in QuickTime events where failure could kill you. It's Heavy Rain Light, and it didn't do it for me. I jumped around so much that sometimes I didn't know who I was playing as, and the choices I made really didn't seem to matter. The story's always pushing forward in one way, so it's like you're watching a mediocre movie with some slow parts where you have to input commands. Even still, it's a movie that doesn't mesh with what fans know. The dinosaurs we've seen from this franchise are fast and ruthless. So to see a raptor square off against one man in a fair fight or a child outrun a T-Rex is a bit ridiculous. Even when a character's life is on the line, I wasn't drawn in. A death in the game comes when you miss a button prompt. But after a stiff scene of a dino biting a person's head, I was just restarted and asked to hit the prompt again. My rating dropped from the gold medal it started as, but that didn't make me care anymore.
You want some of what your buddy had?
Jurassic Park isn't a bad game, but it falls far short of both the movie and Telltale Games' legacies. The characters aren't developed, the gameplay isn't engaging, and the story isn't all that interesting. The excitement and wonder from the films are nowhere to be found here, and you won't miss much if you skip this title. For more on dinosaurs, YouTube that Chef Boyardee Dinosaurs commercial. For more on video games and awesomeness, check out IGN.com.
And that brings us to the final installment of today's Games Domain here on CKTV, on YouTube, and on the final installment of this particular game, and this particular episode, or webisode as they refer to them as, we're going to talk about 4 or 5 people who really did, or it was, wasn't it? And it was an unbelievable franchise. Like, it was 2 films, but it could have been, like, they're still talking about the 3rd film. It's been on the cards for a long time. There's just a bit of disputing going on with certain people. But I'm talking about the amazing franchise that was the Ghostbusters franchise. And Ghostbusters, as we all know, one of the most amazing and one of the most famous franchises from the 1980s. The first one was made in 1986, and the second one was made in 1989. And the first one was made in 1984, and the second one was made 5 years later in 1989. And I would have loved to see the third one be made, but this video game captures the imagination. It has all the voice actors, all the original actors from the movies come back to lend their voices to this film. Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Harold Ramis, Ernie Hudson, Rick Moranis, Sigourney Weaver, and have I left anyone out? Well, amazing cast of characters, a great crew. You had on the crew, you had, of course, who was the director? Steven Spielberg, I nearly sure was involved in it. You had Robert Zemeckis, a great cast of characters, great crew, and it had everything. Back to the Future, or Ghostbusters had everything that a movie needs to make it massive in the box office, and to bring that to a game, Ghostbusters the video game, is just epic. Let's have a look at the trailer now for Ghostbusters the video game.
When disaster strikes, when the city quakes in fear, when there's no one to turn to, who are you gonna call?
That's your cue, killer.
There's something strange in your neighborhood. There's something weird and it don't look good.
It wasn't me this time, I swear it.
All my data indicate that the ghost world is beginning to push through multiple cross portals from their dimension into ours.
Well, more overtime.
Ghostbusters, the video game.
Just once, I wouldn't mind running with these other fools away from each other.
Where's the fun in that?
Yeah, such an amazing game, Ghostbusters the video game. One of the games that, see, when you see that backdrop, you see it here in front of me. I've got this effect on the screen when I'm doing this video. You've got the New York skyline, you can see the Statue of Liberty, you can see Manhattan. I've got that going here in this video, you know what I mean? And that is because I am concentrating on this topic. Ghostbusters, the video game set in New York like the movies, and it really captures that whole universe of the New York universe. Some great scenes in the game, and you gotta love it. I just think that this franchise could go a hell of a long way. These franchises can do so much. I always say the fans could make more amazing movies than the producers actually come up with, because there's so much you could do with the Ghostbusters concept, and it's just a pity they haven't done that much with them on the film. But you can do it on the video games. This video game isn't as it's a totally different type of video game from the other two I'm talking about. But it's great to see these old franchises being resurrected for the world of video games, for that format, because you can do so much with films. You can watch them over and over, but you don't get to change circumstances in films. You do in video games. And if you've got the great CGI of today, and you've got all the different stuff that you need, why not play a video game? I always say, I've done a bit of research recently, and I totally done research, because I heard a few people being a wee bit, assholes about, oh, you're too old to be playing video games and stuff. So I done my research and I stuck it to them, and there's a few people that are skeptical of that, but they're just boring people that don't want to enjoy themselves. So I think it's the video games are. I've done the research, and you know what it told me? Most gamers of this world, the majority of gamers, there's a bigger percentage of gamers that are over the adult age of 18 than there is under 18. So it just goes to show. As we know, the Japanese public, or the people of Japan, are crazy about video games. The Americans are crazy about video games, and then some people, farmers or people in Ireland, would turn around, and mechanics and farmers and these people who don't understand the concept of video gaming. I'm not generalizing, just there's a few people that don't like it, and they turn around and say, oh, you're far too old to do that. That's bullshit, folks, and you know it. Ghostbusters, the video game, what a game. These three games are definitely worth picking up. I would definitely go to see them. I would definitely go to play them anytime. and they're great. So let's have a look now at some gameplay, and we're going to have Ghostbusters, the video game.
There's something strange in your neighborhood. Who you gonna call?
So let's get one thing out of the way here, muchachos. I've been a giant Ghostbusters fan since before I was even born. Don't try to think too much about that, because it gets creepier from there. When I was a wee little Greg, I had my own plastic proton pack with that stupid foam proton string thingamajig. I saw all 2 movies a billion times. I was terrified of the Boogeyman episode of the old cartoon. I mean, Ghostbusters is in my blood, people. Now we have a game that wants you to relive all that nostalgia and gives you a taste of what being a Ghostbuster is really like. This is not some lame-o side story. This is actually a full new adventure that's completely canon. It has Bill Murray, it has Dan Aykroyd, it has Ernie freaking Hudson, people. In fact, even some of the more obscure characters, like the original guy who played Walter Peck, is here. The story was written by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis, so this is not some quick cash-in. I mean, technically there hasn't been a new Ghostbusters movie to cash in on in like 20 years.
Egon, did I mention what a good idea you had to come up on the balcony?
The game really is a love letter to Ghostbusters fans. The attention to detail is amazing. You get to tour the firehouse and see a lot of little knickknacks from the movies, like the dancing toaster that you probably remember. The graphics aren't too shabby either. Some of the animation is a little stiff, but the amount of detail makes up for it. Objects break apart when you blast them, the ghosts like to mess with your head a little, and all of the gear that's in the movies has been digitally recreated with love. The environments are also nice and varied. It never really got boring to look at. However, there are a few problems with the presentation. You'll see these full CG cutscenes that look awesome. They have this great animation, they're really well done, but then you have these scenes that use in-game stuff rendered from the game's engine, and it looks not good at all. It's pixelated, the animation and lip-syncing are off. You just wish that all of the cutscenes were CG. And guys, I love the Ghostbuster movie soundtrack and the fact that it's in the game, but it was a 2-hour movie soundtrack. It's not meant to carry an 8-hour experience. You'll be hearing a lot of repeating tracks. The voice acting is good and funny sometimes, but Bill Murray sort of sounds like he's doing an impression of Bill Murray doing Peter Venkman. Come on, Bill, have all those Garfield movies made you soft?
We'll start at 50% capacity. That should keep any burning or tissue damage to a minimum.
Hey, if you're gonna burn any tissue, do it to the new kid. You can't use Ray. Our mortgage is in his name.
The gameplay actually works well. You wear down a ghost by shooting it, and then when it's weak enough you can slam it into the ground and drag it into a trap. This basic mechanic is fun enough by itself, but there are also a bunch of different weapons, upgrades, and enemies to shake things up. A good example is when you run into a possessed person, and you have to switch over from the proton gun to your slime blower, so you can take the guy out, get the ghost out of his body, and then trap the spirit. Some ghosts have shields you need to pull off, others need to just be destroyed. I mean, this kind of stuff keeps it from being repetitive. By the end of the game, you'll probably find yourself relying on one weapon. Once you fully upgrade the proton pack, there's really no need to be switching around. A maxed out boson dart will probably get you through most of the game. There are also a lot of collectibles. Each ghost and object that you scan with the PKE meter has its own little story that's collected in Tobin's Spirit Guide. It's very cool to see. Multiplayer is also pretty damn fun, and this might be something you weren't expecting. There are 6 different modes and a ton of different environments. You mainly work together as a team to take down ghosts, but there are also modes like Slime Dunk where you can knock down other players and dunk more Slimers. It's a lot of fun and you're trying to level up to be the best Ghostbuster you can be. Ghostbusters is the game that Ghostbuster fans always wanted. It's sharply written, it has the same characters that you've grown up with, and it makes you feel like you're really a Ghostbuster. However, there are a number of things that hold it back from greatness. Some of the rough presentation stuff pulls you out of the game, and there are weird difficulty spikes that get annoying. But even still, this is a game that Ghostbusters fans won't want to miss. For the full written review, cross the streams at IGN.com.
Wow, great game there. Ghostbusters, the video game, another epic franchise over the years of the 80s and the early 80s. That video game actually is set in 1991, a couple of years after the events of the second film, and they really did capture it well, didn't they? Okay, well this has been the first installment of the new and improved, hopefully you will think, gaming domain or games domain here on CKTV. It is called Screen to Video Game. This episode was called Screen to Video Game. I'm sure maybe we'll have another few Screen to Video Game type episodes. I enjoyed covering Back to the Future, the video game, Jurassic Park, the video game, and Busters, the video game. And definitely worth a look at all of them, and worth playing some of all of them or play through some of them. I know a lot of us don't have time. I don't have much time to do this stuff, but I like to do them to unwind there, after being on radio or after doing whatever I'm doing during the day, college or whatever. So it's cool. It's all good, and as they say, as long as you do the hard work, you have to do some playing as well. Okay, it's been the Coaster for the games domain, and I'm just here to say goodbye to you, and Coaster over and out.